Hey everyone, this is Uri for Guerrilla Poker. Gonna continue with a few more hand history reviews. Today, it's not gonna be the most flashy hand histories, so we're probably gonna go through them fairly fast, but keep in mind, like always, these are some of the best players in the world, so you want to see what's going on at Nosebleeds, this is what's going on at Nosebleeds. This is a higher level than all the TV shows and all the stuff you see there. These are the highest level cash game players in the world. Minus one or two guys who this is too low stakes for. We'll see if we can learn something from the Nosebleed online players. And number one is between Nacho and Poker Kluka. Nacho has been featured a lot this month. I'm not very familiar with him. So we have a BVB 3-bet pot, Jack Deuce 3 rainbow board. Whenever you see a board in a 3-bet pot, you always want to see how many Broadways there are out there to understand how valuable pairs are going to be. So we have one Broadway, Nacho checks, Poker Kluka bets half pot indicating that he's actually playing this spot more accurately than most people. There are a lot of guys who go third pot full range, which is close enough. It's a good strategy, but it's not the most accurate strategy. So Poker Kluka's trying to go for something a bit more accurate. He bets half pot and Nacho goes for a really small re-raise. Now, the reason to size like this is a concept I like to call leverage. Basically, when there's not that much money behind, the board's kind of dry, there's no rush to make a big raise, and you actually can afford to give your opponent very good pot odds. You always have to think, which hand am I trying to put in a tough spot here? I think here the idea is to put something like ace, king, king, queen, ace, queen in a tough spot. The nice thing about this tiny check raise is, those hands might be dominated a lot. If you're check raising something like ace, jack, king, jack, queen, jack, pocket deuces, they might be drawing dead pretty much, or drawing to the second best hand very often. And B, even though they are getting nice pot odds, there's not much money behind, so they don't get good implied odds, and then you actually put those hands in a fairly tough spot here. Not to mention hands like ace 10 or king 10, maybe that's what you're going for. So we have this small check raise, Poker Kluka calls, 4 of spades on the turn. In terms of whose range this card connects with, I would say, whenever the card is low, it favors the guy with a weaker range, kind of. So here that's going to be Nacho, the guy who got 3-bet, who called the 3-bet. It's going to hit more gut shots, and of course Poker Kluka will not improve with his floats. So Nacho goes quarter pot, very small size, indicating very merged bet. I think this is actually too small at this point. You generally want to spread out your bets in geometric fashion at some point at least. This is something I go over in a Redline course, which you can find on the Guerrilla Poker website. We have a chapter about how to size your bets and the theory and math behind it. So Nacho bets, Poker Kluka calls, we get the 6 of diamonds river. Looks like tons of stuff came in, but not really. It's fairly rare that players will have a straight. Deuce 3, 4, 5, 6 are not cards that get played very often compared to all the other cards, so it looks dangerous, but it really isn't. Nacho shoving here, I imagine he could go ahead and shove something like ace-jack if he got here with that. Poker Kluka calls, and we see the hands. Poker Kluka has 4, 5 of diamonds, very standardly played hand, starting from pre-flop all the way to the end, not really anything else you would want to do with that hand. And Nacho shows Queen 10 of hearts. Queen 10 of hearts is a fine check raise on the flop, given the backdoor you have 3 to a straight flush. Whether or not you can bet it on the turn, I would guess probably not, or at least not every time, but it's close. The 4 of spades is such a good card for your range. If you think about it, all of your straight draws improve. So what are you going to bluff with? Kind of everything else, which is hands like Queen 10 of hearts. So this is actually a fairly sharp bluff, if I had to guess, from Nacho on the turn. And on the 6 of diamonds river, with so much stuff getting there, there's really nothing else to bluff with. So it might seem crazy, but it's just kind of standard. Okay, second hand, Limitless raises from the button and Poker Kluka calls from the big blind. Limitless has lost his challenge to Stefan, maybe he's moved down to 25-50, needs to regrind his bankroll. Back in the day, Limitless was one of the most legendary grinders online, where I think in the span of 1 or 2 years, he went from low stakes all the way up to nosebleeds with an insane win rate. and then just kind of, flew past when went to live games, went to even higher stakes, and I'm guessing 25.50 is pocket change for him right now. So 3, 4, 5 rainbow, Kluka checks. Really good board for the big blind, relatively speaking, right? You always want to think about the hands the preflop raiser has that the defender doesn't. In here, those are hands like aces, kings, queens, ace, king. Those hands are actually not that strong on a 3, 4, 5 rainbow board. So Limitless betting this tiny bet size is actually a bit inappropriate. I would want to see him go with a more polarized strategy. Poker Kluka goes for a small check raise, which I also find a little bit off. If you're thinking about what type of hand he's trying to put in a tough spot, this is trying to put something like King Queen in a tough spot. Maybe something like Ace 8 in a tough spot. What he's saying with a small size, and I guess in that sense his size is fine, is this is going to be a merged check raise, right? Not just sets and straights. He's going to throw in a bunch of other stuff in there. And he's just trying to deny equity from his opponent's overcards. Limitless calls. We have a turn over bet from Kluka going full polarized. At this point, he should probably just have 2 pair plus, maybe a set or bet or somewhere around that for value, and just draws his bluffs usually. King on the river. King changes absolutely nothing. Like we said, the value range for Kluka is so tight. No one pair hand really matters. So Kluka shoves, Limitless calls. Kluka shows up with pocket 4s, 3 of a kind. Limitless just flopped the nuts and called down. Standard hand, right? Nothing special going on, but in terms of what you can learn, and this is something I want you guys to always take away, look at Poker Kluka's flop check raise size. Look at his turn barrel size. Every single thing here is actually being done fairly accurately. Like, these are sharp players at the top of their game. Again, this is something I talk about in my course, but either way, this is something you need to understand. These sizings generate extra EV. You don't want to constantly be winging them. You need to understand the principles behind the sizings. Here we have another hand with Poker Kluka. He's getting in there a lot. Davy Jones raises from the button. Kluka 3 bets, roughly 5x. Davy Jones calls. 7 deuce 4 two-tone board. And if you guys are listening and I said count how many broadways there are 0 broadways. That means tons of stuff missed for Poker Kluka. He's sitting there with his Jack-10 suited, Ace, King, King, Queen, lots of unpaired hands. Of course, he has some overpairs, but relatively speaking, most of his range is now going to be unpaired. So Poker Kluka decides to check. If Poker Kluka was a weak player, maybe his checking range would just be Ace King, Ace Queen, Ace Jack, King Queen hands like that, and he would bet all his good hands. But Poker Kluka being a strong player is of course going to be a lot more deceptive. Actually check some good hands, as you guys are going to see. So Kluka checks, Davy Jones bets roughly 1/3 pot. Again, you always need to judge the intention. This small bet is saying, I'm going to be betting really, really wide. Any pair I have, just putting your ace kings in a tough spot. And Kluka check raises to 1200. Maybe I checked aces, kings, queens, jacks. I'm check raising you now. And, money's going to go in. Of course, with whatever bluff he feels like doing this with as well. Here, in terms of kind of what sizing you want to go, I don't think Poker Kluka is really trying to make a hand like King Queen indifferent, because King Queen is just going to have to fold. This is probably just him trying to leverage stacks, and not really sure he is actually trying to make anything indifferent. In that sense, maybe the size is actually a bit too big. Maybe you should go a bit smaller. Maybe he's trying to make King Queen indifferent. It's just hard for me to imagine King Queen calling when some of your bluffs are stuff like Ace Queen and Ace King sometimes. So size feels a bit big to me. I think this is a bit inaccurate. 4 of diamonds turn. Poker Kluka now bets 1/3 pot. And again, to understand the size, you have to understand how much money there is behind. And Poker Kluka is actually going for a really nice size in the sense that he's going to go 1/3 pot on the turn, and he'll have 1/3 pot left behind on the river. So he's actually spreading out his bets over multiple streets, which is the ideal way to go when you have a polarized range. With one caveat, of course, being that sometimes if the bet is a bit too small, you want to size a bit bigger on earlier streets to deny equity from draws. Is that the case here? I would tend to say yes. I think, Davy Jones could have random flush draws. There's no reason to give them such a good price. So if you were picking just one size for your range, I'd actually probably go bigger than 1/3 pot. You could have two sizes. Maybe you have boats or, nut flush draws or whatever where you want the other guy to call. So those would make sense to go smaller with. So 1/3, Davy Jones calls, river 9 of diamonds, complete brick unless someone hit a 9 with a flush draw. Poker Kluka checks. Generally, given his line, check raise flop bet turn. When you check river, you're generally just check folding because, it's just give up, so all of your value ranges gonna want to keep going. So he checks, Davy Jones shoves, and Poker Kluka actually ends up calling. Davy Jones just flopped the complete nuts with top set, so not much he can do wrong there. And Poker Kluka has a fairly surprising hand in ace deuce of hearts. I'm not sure this is a good check raise, personally. I think it's okay. After check raising, his line kind of makes sense, right? If you're thinking about it from what does my hand want to accomplish, like this is definitely the hand that wants to bet turn small, and then you get to the river. You're always check folding. Davy Jones is always bluffing is like 5-6. Maybe he gets here with 6-8 suited, maybe all his flush draws, stuff like that. So might as well throw in a check call when you have the 1 in a million kind of combo that actually can do that. But I think since we've seen a few hands in this video, I want to actually load this one up and check what's going on and whose assumptions are correct, mine or Kluka's. Okay, so quick PO session, right? So we said no Broadways, that matches with a 50% C-bet, and I already have to rebuild my range because mine doesn't have ace deuce of hearts, so we'll just throw that in. Check bet. Check raise the ace deuce of hearts. Never check raise for the big size. Doesn't make sense. Get the 4 of diamonds here. You never have ace deuce of hearts. What would you do if you have it? You would check, because why would you bet ace deuce of hearts? And, if you're betting, mostly shove. But if you're gonna bet ace deuce of hearts specifically, I actually prefer the 1/3 size that Kluka chose. And you get called, 9 of diamonds. Here, of course, once you get here with ace deuce of hearts, you're gonna want to check. If villain shoves, you want to call. So we see that Poker Kluka's check raise size was indeed a bit too big. Definitely for a hand like ace deuce of hearts, it was too big. Turn, his sizing is fine for ace deuce of hearts specifically, but ace deuce of hearts would rather check, and most of the rest of his range would rather just shove because the board's kind of low. Or, go a bigger sizing than 1/3, and then river, his play is perfect. Once you get here with a pair of deuces, you just check call. It's not very winning, but it should be fine. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed another peek into some high stakes hands and managed to learn a few things. Like and subscribe to the channel. Check out the Guerrilla Poker website. Course about how to improve your red line, GTO pre-flop ranges, and a bunch of other stuff coming up very, very soon. See you guys next time.